Good morning, everyone. Today, myself, Dr. Amrita Singh, Assistant Professor of Department of Pharmacy, IC College of Engineering and Technology, Greater Noida. I'm here to discuss about the topic that is adverse drug reactions. In this, I'm going to tell you about the monitoring parameters, analysis, and their managements. During my slides, I will discuss some of the points which I have listed here in the objectives, the definitions, the epidemiology of the adverse drug reactions, their classifications of ADRs, the methods to detect the ADR, evaluate or analyze the ADRs. Lastly, the documentation of the adverse drug reactions. So let's start with the introduction. So basically, it has been seen around 10 to 20% of the hospitalization of the patient is due to the ADR. So the adverse drug reactions can be a serious and it can cause the increase of the morbidity or the mortality rate of the person. So any therapeutic actions uh, which harm the patients by the drug is the adverse drug reactions, and this adverse drug reactions in the new generation new trends, it can be a costly medication therapy. So the awareness should be given about the ADR, and so that we can minimize the ADR and the seriousness of the ADR. So, according to the WHO, who is a World Health Organization, which is a regulatory body of the adverse drug reactions, so the WHO has proposed a definition of the ADR is the response to a drug that is noxious and unintended and that occurs at the doses which used normally in the humans for the prophylaxis, diagnosis, or the therapy of the disease or for the modification of the physiologic functions. So we can say any unintended noxious events which occur by the drug on the normal usual dose. So we can say here like the drug has a causal relationship with the adverse drug reactions which a drug reacted on the body and produces some reactions and hampered the therapeutical physiological function of the body is the adverse drug reactions. It also excludes all the therapeutic failures like overdose, drug abuse, non-compliance to the drugs and other medication errors. So these also produces some adverse drug reactions, and this has to be minimized. Next is the epidemiology of ADRs. Like you have seen in the first life, I have told around 10 to 20% of the hospitalization is due to the ADR. So it has been estimated the definition of the ADRs from this and estimate of the like all the incidences of the ADRs will be differ from the different mode of drug has been taken, and the ADR can be defined according to the different study method or the population group. And the hospitalization and the death case of the patients is the fourth or the sixth leading cause for this, and it has been seen like around 6.7% of the incidence of the serious adverse drug reactions. So we can say the incidence rate of the ADR in a popular group is around 6 to 7%, 6.7%. And about the hospitalization, we can say 0.3 to 7%. It can vary according to the situation, according to the literacy of the people who are living in an area. Around more dollars in billions has been used has been proposed for removing the ADRs, and the awareness programs has been implemented, patient counseling has been started. Most of the hospitals also started the ADR reporting centers as well as appointed the community pharmacists to give a proper knowledge. Clinical pharmacists also they have selected and they have been appointed in the hospitals to provide a good or a proper knowledge of the drug, how to take, when to take, and how much has to be taken. And if the side effects or the adverse effect is being going to be produced, then what are the monitoring parameters that also been told by the clinical pharmacist. So the prevalence of the ADRs are difficult to estimate because it depends upon the very different problems, like the definitions which we are using for the ADR proposing, the surveillance techniques, how we are collecting the ADR, or the research populations who are under the study. So like 5% of the hospital admission is being attributed to the ADR, and it can be said very critical conditions or serious conditions. So for the seriousness criteria, the patients have been classified like if the patient having a death, uh, congenital anomaly, hospitalization or prolonged hospitalization, congenital birth defects. So these are the criterias which has been classified in the serious condition of the cases. So let's talk about the adverse drug reaction classifications. So the classification has been related with the common factors for the preventions. So according to the uh, serious criteria, the adverse drug reaction is being classified into 6 categories. So first is the type A. Type A is the augmented pharmacology. Augmented means which has been predictable, and the ADR which has been usually dose dependent, and uh, and these ADRs are more highly morbid and with a more low mortality rate. So if we see the example like hypoglycemic conditions in the anti-diabetic drugs, or you can say a bradycardia attack with the beta blockers. So these are the example of a type A augmented pharmacology. Next is the type B, which is B stands for the bizarre. Bizarre means which is unpredictable, unrelatable, and which where there is no identification of these situations, which is something unrelated to the adverse drug reactions. So type B is the bizarre reactions, which is also known as the hypersensitivity reactions, which is not predictable, you can say, and not a dose dependent reactions. So unless patient is not reported about this adverse drug reactions, we cannot know about this history of the type of the reactions. Examples we can say like penicillins which induce hypersensitivity reactions, or all these type B reaction is rare. These are the rare. I said this is a bizarre reactions, which is not a common one. So these are the rare but often serious with the high mortality rate. As you have seen in the augmented, the mortality rate is low because which is predictable and dose dependent. We if we alter the dose, increase or lower the dose, we can save the patient with the ATRs. Okay, so next limitation of the above classification, like the certain areas difficult to include into a different group, like in the type B heterogeneous groups, which like it does not include like all the drug interactions, all the treatment failures, drug interaction with the two etiological different drugs. So it has been not been included in the bizarre reactions. So it has been written excluded criteria of the type B reactions. So thus ADRs are classified on the reactions which is caused by the active ingredients. That's why they are divided into two parts, type A and type B. So the Wills and the Brown scientist has classified the adverse drug reactions from A to U in a different classes. So that's why this classification is known as the Wills and Brown classification. Type A is the augmented. Type B classification is known as the bizarre. C stand for chemical. D is for delivery. E is for exit. F is the familial or a failure. G is the genotoxicity. H stand for the hypersensitivity. N for the unclassified adverse drug reactions, which cannot be placed in above groups. As you have seen, A is the augmented, which is predictable, dose dependent, and reactions can be withdrawal as the drug is being withdrawn or altered. Type B is the bizarre, which is unpredictable, and they promote the growth of microorganisms like sugar coated medicines promoting the dental caries. So these are some other different bizarre reactions. Type C is the chemical irritations, any reactions which is been chemically they produce some reactions, like chemical nature of the drug produces the irritation, that is a chemical pharmacological actions. Or it can be this is not pharmacologically predictable, it cannot be predictable, because this reaction, chemical reactions, can be occur only to a particular group of patients who are very sensitive skin or sensitive pharmacological process. Like example can be phlebitis or the pain at the site of injections. These are a little chemical reactions. Next is the D, is the delivery reactions, which can be delayed reactions also. So the method of the drug delivery or the physiological nature of the formulation of the drug can produces this type of reactions. So example is inflammation around the implants or thrombosis on the particles in the injections. So these are the reactions which are being produced during the delivery of the product or delivery of the drug. Okay, so next is the exit is the withdrawal of the of the drug. After withdrawing of the drug from the disease, they produces some reactions. So these are the withdrawalic reactions, which totally dependent upon the drug, which type of drug, the dose of the drug, and how long duration the drug has been taken. So the reintroduction of the causatic a drug or the amyloids symptoms are being produced by the withdrawal of the reactions, which is a physical dependency of the reaction, dependency of the drug. So the body, if we take any psychotic drugs for a long duration of the period, or hypertensive or the diabetic, the drugs goes for a long duration for the therapy, pharmacological therapy, we can say. The drugs is being given for a long duration of the period, so that's why the patient develop a dependency for the drug, due to which, and after withdrawing, sudden withdrawing, the body produces some physiological changes in your in your problems, and this will lead or reactions, and it can also be a serious. Next is the familiar reactions, which has been, we can say, susceptible to the individuals or genetically determined inherited metabolic disorders, which can be inherited by the parents. Like example, we can say sickle cell anemia, G6PD reactions. Type last as the type G, which is a genotoxicity. These are the reactions which are being the drugs which induce the genetic damage, genetically or carcinogenic. They produces some carcinogenic genotoxicity. That's why it is known as genotoxicity. Type H is the hypersensitivity reactions, like some allergic common areas which is not predictable, non-dose dependence, or it can be occur with any of the drug according to the susceptibility of the patients. So this can vary from person to person, like photoallergy, anaphylaxis reactions, as you have seen in the COVID patients. During this pandemic, the vaccination has been started, but some of the vaccinations are producing a serious adverse drug reactions, which is anaphylaxis reactions, and this EDR is also been reported in the regulatory bodies. So type C is the unclassified, which is the that type of adverse drug reactions, which the mechanism behind the reactions is not known. Okay, so like some of the anesthetics, when anesthesia has been given to the patient, the patient feels nauseating and the vomiting, but the feeling of this nausea is not been defined. There is no mechanism is being proposed why this happens. Okay, or some drug induced taste disturbances. So this is a type U. So according to the what is the mechanism behind the adverse drug reactions, it is being proposed here. So if we see talk about the type A, what is the mechanism behind the augmented type of pharmacological actions? So we can classify it to three basic parts. The augmented adverse drug reactions can depend upon the pharmaceutical causes, like the formulation of the drugs, pharmacokinetic parameters, ADME, and the pharmacodynamic causes. So firstly, pharmaceutical causes. So changes in the drug quantity present in the particular product can alter the adverse drug reactions. The like some patient uphold the capacity of the drug like 650 mg, but some are very sensitive or produces some disorders, kidney failure or lung failure. So changes in its drug release property can also be a factors. Uh, if the patient is taking oral drug and we due to the emergency condition, we are giving any injections or parenteral drugs, so it may cause adverse drug reaction to that patients. Example is the read control preparation of endomethacin, which is used for the induced gastrointestinal bleeding and hemorrhage. So hemorrhage can also be caused with certain doxycycline salt and can cause a corrosive effect on the esophagus. So these are the examples of the pharmaceutical causes. Next is the kinetic causes. Kinetic basically is the ADME process: absorption, distribution, metabolism, and elimination of the drugs. So whole process, the how the drug is going from the absorption till the elimination, can also alter the adverse drug reactions. Next is the dynamic causes. It is the increased sensitivity of the target tissue or the organ may predispose a person to adverse drug reactions. So here, the targeted tissue can lead to the adverse drug reactions. So next is the mechanism behind the type B. So the decomposition of the active ingredient, like all the drug is not, the medicines is not just made about the drug, the salt, it also prepared with some other active ingredients. With the active ingredients, some binders, some other preservatives, any additives also uh, being is used while preparing the drug. So it can alter their decomposition, it can these binders or other additives, excipients, can also alter the drug composition. So we see in the example, with the example, genetic factors like for death have been reported due to the decomposition of paraldehyde to acetaldehyde and its subsequent oxidation to the acetic acid. This is an example. Like next is the many additives like propylene glycol, CMC may cause the hypersensitivity reactions. So these are the pharmaceutical causes of the mechanism behind the type B ATRs. These are the bizarre ATRs I have told you already. According to the basic of the severity, how severe the adverse drug reaction is, the ATR can be classified like onset, severity, or the type of the adverse drug reactions. So first is the onset. Onset can be classified into three groups: acute, subacute, or the latent. Acute ADRs occur within a 60 minutes. Subacute ADR occur within 1 to 24 hours of the drug used. Latent is the more than two. If the drug is used more than 2 days, then the ATR has been proposed. Next is the severity reactions. So severity reactions, they are classified into three phases: mild, moderate, and severe. So mild is the not bothersome and it required just a little change in therapy and it can be uh, reoccur from the ATR, relief from the ATR. Next is the moderate reactions, which requires the change in the therapy, additional treatment, some hospitalization, and the patient will recover. Severe, which is a disabling or a life-threatening, which is a severe condition, and it will lead, sometimes it lead to a death of the patient or a, in a coma. Next, classification of the severity according to the FDA. I have told you previously, like the criteria of the seriousness is the death, life-threatening, or hospitalization, require hospitalization or a prolonged hospitalization, cause the disability or cause a congenital anomaly, or it require intervention to prevent a permanent injury. Classification of type, like I have told you the classification of the severity ke base pe, like it has been classified into three part: onset, severity, and the type. So that the third one, the type is the it can is divided into two, that is reportable or not reportable. So which all drugs are reported, these which produces the adverse drug reactions. So all the significant or the unusual adverse drug reactions, as well as unanticipated or novel events that are suspected to be drug related, are the adverse drug reactions. So as here I have discussed the classification of the reportable. So all the significant or the unusual adverse drug reactions, as well as unanticipated or novel events that are susceptible to the, or you can say suspected to be a drug related, all are reportable. So the events which are reportable are being classified according as a hypersensitivity reactions, life threatening, or which causes the disability, or some idiosyncratic reactions secondary to the drug reactions. These are the reportable adverse drug reactions. So the common cause of the ATRs are these drugs, like has been reported around 69% of the fatal of the ATRs are being proposed by this class of drugs. Body systems which commonly involved are the hematology, your central nervous system, dermatology, your kidney, your liver related, all the organs, body systems are commonly involved, which causes the ADR. So what are the predisposing factors which propose the ADRs are the, firstly is the age. Very old or very young are more susceptible to produce the ADRs. Like your elderly or multiple chronic diseases patients are the major consumers of the drugs, and that causes adverse drug reactions. Next is the gender, where like more women are more at the risk, which is the factor behind this is not known. Next factor is the intercurrent diseases. Intercurrent diseases, like all the underlying diseases like renal, hepatic, cardiac, because all these organs which are the drugs which are given for this organ related diseases are more prone to produce some ADRs. Next is the genetic polymorphism, as I have discussed in the type A reactions, which alter the drug metabolism. And the example is G6PD deficiency, which leading to the hemolysis by the oxidant drugs like the primaquine. So primaquine is the drug which causes a G6PD deficiency by the hemolysis process. Next is the race. It has been seen that the ethnic differences has been proposed, or the genetic factors which lead to the adverse drug reactions. Next factor is the inadequate patient knowledge. Inadequate patient knowledge, like you have to educate the patient about the ADRs. If they do not know the ADRs, it lead to a serious problem. It can lead to a death also. Next is the allergic reactions, like the history of previous reactions of the drug. If is there, then we have to monitor all the reactions properly and report it, so that next time if the drug is given to some other person in the with the same conditions, uh, there should be a proper monitoring of the ADRs. Next is the pharmacokinetic variables. So how people respond to the drugs is also a main criteria, main problem. Like some subtherapeutic responses or the drug toxicity made to the adverse drug reactions. So these are the risk factors of the ADR, like age, the multiple medications, comorbid conditions, inappropriate medications, of the prescribing pattern of the different age group. Okay, also a major problem, and organ dysfunction, altered physiology, prior history of the ADRs, uh, extent and the duration of the exposure, or the genetic predisposition are the some risk factors of the adverse drug reactions. If we see in this graph, the frequency of use of the drug as increases, the number of medicines as increases, the percentage of adverse drug reactions also increases. So the ADR detections can be by the physical examination. So we, while reporting the ADR, we have to propose some documentation. So in this, firstly, we have to write the subjective report, the patient complaints, what are the patient complaints, what the patient is trying to say, what are the ADRs, what are the sufferings of the patients. Next is the objective data. Here you have to put all the direct observation of the events. You have to report the event, all the abnormal findings, like a physical examination, how the patient is looking by seeing physically, some laboratory test or the diagnostic procedures are being subjected in the objective report. Next is the medication order screening. This is very important for recalling for the ADR, for finding the causal relationship with the ADR. So the abrupt medication discontinuation, abrupt doses reductions, or the special test, the serum concentration, drug concentration in the serum is very, very important for the medication order screening. Next is the spontaneous reporting of the ADR, medication utilization review. You have to computerize the screening, you have to put all the information, the chart review, the concurrent audits, so that whenever we require the information, we can recall it, regain it, the information for other persons. So the ADR detection in the clinical trials, there are some limitations. So the you cannot detect all the ADRs during the clinical trials because of the size of the populations. So during the clinical trials, the drug goes to the different phases, but the population, the human volunteers or the healthy volunteers which are using in the clinical trials are very less, like around 1,000 to 3,000 patients. So a proper detection, a proper variety of patients are not being proposed in the clinical trials. That's why some adverse drug reactions are hidden during the clinical trials. So this is the limitations. When the drug come into the market after the clinical trials, the where the population is a large and a variety of patients are being given this drug, then we can see a proper adverse drug reactions. Next is the preliminary assessment. In a preliminary description of events, we have to ask with the patient, oh, who, what, when, where, how the event is being proposed, who is involved, what is the most likely causative agent if the patient is taking a n number, a combination of drug or some other non-prescription or the OTC drugs. Next is the determination of the urgency. What is the patient current clinical status and how the severe is the reactions. So proper triaging the case, proper triaging the patient conditions, we will uh, divide it into acute or a serious. If it is a serious, ICU or a poison control unit is being involved, then there will be a serious problem. Then it has to be shifted into the ICU and a proper case study is being followed. Next is the detailed description of the patient. As I have told you, you have to collect all the information regarding with the physical, objective, subjective data, the history of the present illness, sign and symptoms of the sign and symptoms of the events, like all the PQRSTA. It is, as you say, anything which has been written as a PQRSTA. So you have to detail it, all the information, like provoking or the palliative factors, quality of the sensitivity, intensity, or the characteristics of the adverse reactions, the response of the treatment, severity, the location, what is the temporal relationship with the ADR, and other associated signs and symptoms. Okay, so next is the pertinent to the patients or the disease factors. All the demographic details, age, race, there is ethnicity, their gender, their height and weight, all the information should be collected. Their medical history, their physical examination history, their concurrent medications or special circumstances of the patient as has to be included. So next, all the surgeries or previous surgeries, recent procedures, if the patient is taking any treatment, all the information has to be included in the pertinent patient or the disease factors. So next is the pertinent medication factors, is the medication history, in which you have to write all the prescription medication as well as the non-prescription medications, other alternative or investigational therapy, or the all the medication which has been used previously in the 6 months, allergies, intolerance, and other history of the medication adherence. Okay, so for the adverse drug reaction informations, you have to write all the information which I have told in the previous slides. It has been listed here. So next is the information resources from where you can recall all the adverse drug reactions. The information can be collected with the three various sources. First is the tertiary sources. Tertiary sources are the reference books, your other textbooks, or specialized EDR resources, or some any drug resources, review articles. From there you can take all the informations about the ADR. So the tertiary sources are the reference books or textbooks. Secondary sources are the international journal, whatever the abstract or the biological abstracts, you can say databases or international pharmaceutical abstracts. So secondary data are the data from the databases or some international pharmaceutical abstracts. Primary data are the data which has been reported firstly by the by the reporters. So these are the first information which can be published unpublished data, which is a spontaneous reports directly to by the FDA or the manufacturer, or some descriptive reports, which is a case reports of the case series, or the sub observational studies, which is a case control or the cohort. So as you have collected all the data, like which type of ADR, what the information is to be reported, or what the what from where we collect the data. Lastly is the causality assessment. What is the causality assessment? It is a severity of the ADR. So the reactions, which is prior report of the reactions, which can be a T challenge or a D challenge, and they have a causal relationship with the dose. So the example of the causality algorithms are the Kramer or the Naranjo and the Jones. So the causality assessment is being proposed with the scaling parameters. So the scaling parameters are being given by some other scientists, and the causality outcome is being given by the highly probable, possible, or doubtfully the ADR is related with the dose or the drug. So Naranjo ADR probability scale is listed with the 10 questionnaires. Like the first question is, are there previous conclusion reports on this reaction? If the patient say yes, you have to mark it 1. No, then it is with 0. Do not know, 0. So as these are the list of questions, according to the answer given by the patient, you will mark it and score it, make a total score, and if the total score lie with the 9, then there will be a highly probability of the ADR, like the event is more probable to cause with the drug. Okay, 5 to 8, then there will be a probable. No, little one means maybe or may not be, probability case hai. If the total score lies between 1 to 4, then there will be a possible causes. 0, then there will be a doubtful cause. So the management option is the discontinue the offending agent, or the continue the medications. If we see the ADR, there will be a two possibility for the management of the ADR. We continue the drug or we discontinue them according to the continuation, according to the tolerance, according to the safety, according to the necessity of the medication. The this two management is being proposed. Okay. Okay. Lastly is the follow-up and the re-evaluation. Re-evaluation, in the re-evaluation and the follow-up, we will see the patient progress. What is the course of the event? What is the delayed reactions proposed by the drug or the response to the treatment? Lastly, which is most important, is the documentation and reporting. So all the adverse drug reactions should be reported by the regulatory authorities. All the medical practitioners has to report as they get to know about the adverse drug reactions. So all the reporting should have a medical record, proper medical report with the description, management, and the outcome. Reporting responsibility is also being given by the drug FDA, which is a Food and Drug Administrations, pharmaceutical manufacturers, or publishing in the medical literature. These are the components of an ADR report. There is a form which report the ADR are the product name or the manufacturer, patient demographics, description of the adverse drug reactions and their outcomes, date of onset when the ADR has been proposed, the drug, when you have started the drug, stop of the drug, what's the time, and how much of the drug you are taking, dose, frequency, and which type, what method you are taking, relevant lab test or other objective evidences, what are the de-challenge, you have stopped the drug or reoccurred the drug or not, what's the re-challenge and de-challenge information of the drug, confounding variables. This is a MedWatch form in which you have to add all the information related to the adverse drug reactions. See, like A part is all about the patient information, B part is for adverse drug reaction, C part is the suspect drugs, like the patient is saying he's taking around 4 to 6 drugs, but you find he says like only the one drug which produces the ADR, which is a suspected drug, all the information about that, suspect medical advice, and the initial reporter. Who is the initial reporter of the report? Thank you.